All right, welcome to the Bears, Jim. Today we are studying the Old Testament book of Exodus. The Exodus is a book predominantly about God dealing with Egypt in the beginning and the onset of the nation of Israel. Eventually, God is going to judge Egypt, and Israel is going to move on out of Dodge, so to speak, move out of camp, move out of the nation of Egypt after God judges them with 12 judgments to let God's people go to their new home, to their new land. We see Israel has grown into a great nation from Jacob, who was also named Israel by God. He had 12 sons. They therefore were broken down into 12 tribes. Later on we see the two half-tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, but we'll talk about that another time. Today we are picking up in the baby stages of, their deliverer is born in Egypt. His name is Moses. He's going to grow up to be a great man in Egypt, what we would call nowadays a great politician, a great influential speaker, possibly even a CEO, business tycoon, oil magnate, whatever you would call him, a great man in their standard. Eventually, Moses will choose to endure the sufferings of his own people, Israel, and to be with them as one of their similar brethren. Eventually, he is driven off into the desert because of his taking, justice in his own hands. Not to say he was wrong, not to say he was right, just he did that, and he wound up having to be in the wilderness where God then nurtured him, taught him to be a leader, first of sheep, then of a people. All right, with that being said, that little kind of foundation block, we are moving into Exodus chapter 2. So here we go. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Just as a by note, if you hear a very monstrous, animal in here, it's just Boris, okay? He's here. If you see a big, humongous, 220-pound monster walking around the garage, it's okay. It's not Sasquatch or a bear that broke into the gym. It's just my mascot, so it's okay. So if you want to call out to Boris, say, hello, Boris. Hello, Boris. He's busy. He's just kind of relaxing and cleaning his paws, but it's safe. All right, back to the text here. So we get to foundation. God's going to bring a ruler out of the tribe of Levi. Eventually, they will form the priesthood, the Levitical bearers of the temple, the workers and the priests and so forth, will come from Levi. Okay, a goodly child. And she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, daubed it with slime and pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. Once again, very interesting thing. Wherever you see pitch, kind of an interesting thing. Many of these tar pits and so forth of the Mideast brought our oil friends into digging wells in the Mideast. And as we all know, they hit a cacophony, a gold mine of rich and crude natural oil. All right, we go along. But it is also a very good sealer from the water. The little tar pitch, petroleum-based pitch around wood, so forth, which is very much the same thing that Noah also used on the outside and between the wood on the ark appears. But we'll talk about that another time. Matter of fact, we already talked about that in our study in Genesis. I'll let you go back and follow that up for yourself. So tar and pitch a little bit on the outside, make it nice and waterproof, and then she put him in the Nile River. I guess what can you do? If you remember last time our study in Exodus, the Pharaoh had given an ultimatum that all children under the age of 2, especially of Israel, should be killed. Especially, most importantly, and for the Israelites to kill off their male children because they're afraid of them. Obviously, God's blessing was upon them. His sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children," no doubt. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the young child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. Kind of interesting. Kind of like her mother just put the baby in the Nile thinking he's gone. I can't bear it anymore. And the next thing you know, she is being paid to be the wet nurse for her own child. Very beautiful. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." Now, contrary to a very good, very well done, I'll put it, very good documentary type movie, they had Moses not really knowing his heritage, and there was a surprise when he found out he was a heritage, and that was all hidden from him. But that does not appear to be the scriptural view of what happened. The scriptural view was that Pharaoh knew who he was. Pharaoh's daughter knew who he was, from what people he was from. His mother was well aware of where he was at. Moses also knew his lineage, and he was from the children of Israel. But there was a very good movie put out about the children of Israel and the Ten Commandments and all that kind of thing. It was at their level of knowledge of what went on. They did a good enough job, but had a few little facts were, a little bit blurry, a little bit, a little bit wrong, a little bit messed up. But they did as good a job as they could do. But one of the things that was, to me, a little bit off in left field was the fact that Moses didn't know he was from the children of Israel till he was an adult. But I don't really think that's what the biblical account is. Anyway, let's continue on. And the child grew, and she brought him up unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses, and said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. So Moses is going to strike up, he's going to get out the bear hammer and smash some pumpkins. And he probably had the right to do that. Being one of Pharaoh's sons, he had probably had the right to kill off somebody that was being cruel to another without any real legal repercussions. The kings and the king's family could do that in those days. And Moses enacted his right to dispense capital punishment in his eyes. So he got out the bear hammer and smashed a pumpkin and hit him in the sand. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So he kind of covered his tracks and hid him. Not that he didn't really have the right to do so as an Egyptian ruler, but he didn't really want it found out. Maybe there was some animosity between Pharaoh and Moses. We're not really sure. I really don't know. Maybe he had deep problems over, raising a stepchild. I understand that. I also raised stepchildren. Had a wonderful job doing it, and we had a lot of good times together. And you just make them your family, and you just have a Baar family. That's what you have. Whether they're your biological father, your stepchildren, adopted children, foster children, whatever it is, you just make them your family, and you make the best of it, and you have a good time. I believe we did that, and perhaps Pharaoh didn't quite do that. Okay, so possibly there was some animosity there to Moses, and maybe Moses understood that. So when he killed this Egyptian, he hid him in the sand. Verse 13. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to them that did the wrong, Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow Hebrew? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us, intending thou to kill me, as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. You can't, a lot of our politicians and our public figures, they try to hide their past. But you know what? Why hide it? Eventually it's going to come out. Like a spouse, a wife, or a husband that's cheating on their mate. Just get it out. You get it out. You don't have anything to hide anymore. You're not living in fear or dread that somebody's going to find out. Some guy, did something wrong when he was a teenager, and he lives in that lie. But just get it off your chest. Better just get it off your chest, and be done with it. And so, but Moses hid him in the sand, and now he realizes he's been found out. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now, don't think that believe that Moses was afraid and he ran away. The New Testament seems to indicate that he didn't fear Pharaoh at all. But instead of being whatever punishment he would have, he chose to leave, and despite the wrath of the ruler, to leave and go off into the wilderness, and it was his choice. So the New Testament, and you mix these kind of two together, it does seem to declare that he went out bravely in the land of the wilderness to seek out a new life other than the one that Pharaoh had for him in Egypt. We move on. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that you are come so soon today? They said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, Where is he? Why is it that ye have left this man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And she bare him a son, and he gave him the name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And thus he was. Yes, he was. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto him. And when I say unto him, I mean unto Jacob, unto his family, unto the nation, Israel, unto them. God had mercy on Israel. God had mercy on Moses. And now he's going to bring them both together and give them a deliverer. Kind of raised in the Egyptian rules, regulations, custom, and yet by blood, being a child of Yahweh, a child of Elohim. And so he had kind of the best of both worlds for that region. God's going to train him. He has trained him in the wilderness, and he's going to then bring him back to Egypt in a different way that he left, and be the savior, the redeemer of their bondage, and bring them out into the wilderness and introduce them to Yahweh, the one true God, whom they are going to serve. And Moses is kind of a picture of our Savior Jesus Christ. He wasn't a savior spiritually. Moses was just a man. But the New Testament kind of used certain precepts and principles of pointing back that he set up a pattern of Old Testament laws and covenant. Jesus is the ultimate Savior, salvation, and creator of the world and the universe, and he is the true Redeemer and the sanctifier of all mankind. And frequently, Moses is used as a picture of his Savior. And we'll break that down more as we move along here in the book of Exodus. But God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed. And we're going to pick up next time in chapter 3 of Exodus. And we're going to move on how God has taken this young man that has been well-schooled, been a pharaoh, as you will, a little junior pharaoh, a ruler in the land of Egypt, yet of Hebrew descent. And he's going to turn him into a little lamb, a little child, and then bring him back into Egypt as a rescuer for his people. God bless you, my friends. We'll see you next time.